I spent my 20s trying to become someone, and I ended up losing myself. I chased success, got some of it, but it was never enough. So I left. And I spent 2 years in a monastery in India. Not exactly where I thought this decade would take me. But it is where I started to remember who I really was. So if you are in your 20s, feeling lost, behind, or just unsure what the hell you are doing, let me share with you the 5 lessons that changed everything for me. Lesson number 1. Define your own definition of success. In my early 20s, I had a very clear idea of what success should look like. Money, recognition, respect, influence. I thought that if I could get all of that, I'll finally feel complete. So I went all in on my acting and modeling career. And after a few years of effort, things started to happen. Contract with big brands, Paris Fashion Week, even double for Kylian Mbappé. Everything was going according to plan, except for one thing. I still felt empty. Whatever I achieved, it never landed. I always needed the next thing, the next proof, the next version of enough. I remember walking in the street one day and seeing myself on a giant screen. The kind of moment I used to dream about. But on this day, I felt nothing. Everyone around me would have expected me to feel proud. But inside, there was just emptiness. That was the moment I realized that nothing external was ever going to give me what I was searching for. If I wanted real answers, I'll have to stop looking outward and start looking inward. So I took a decision that will change my life forever. I left everything and went to live in a monastery in India for 2 years. Not to escape, but to find out if true fulfillment was even possible. And if it was, I wanted to understand what it actually meant. I learned how to sit with myself and find clarity in places I used to run away from. 6 years later, I'm back in the noise, the pace, the world I once left behind. So I guess it is time for a check-in. If I measure my 20s by the goals I had at the beginning, then by all accounts, I failed. I didn't make it in Paris. I'm definitely not a millionaire. I haven't found the one. I didn't settle down. And on top of that, I'm kind of starting over from scratch. But here's the thing. Even if I didn't accomplish any of the things I wrote down back then, I don't feel like I failed, because I did achieve one thing, something more valuable than anything I could put on this list. Today, no matter where I am in the world, I can sit down, close my eyes, and go to a quiet place inside me that doesn't need anything. No goals, no future, just stillness. That's not an idea or a mindset. It is a state of being. And for me, it is worth more than anything I used to chase. Now, I'm not saying I live 24/7 in peace. I don't. But knowing I can return to that space without needing anything external has been the most valuable things I've gained in my 20s. Looking back, I can see that most of my early goals were rooted in fear, trauma, or in conditioning, in a need to prove something. And whether I had achieved them or not, I still would have felt unfulfilled, because the source of those goals was broken. That's why defining your own version of success matters so much. Whatever your goals are, build a business, travel the world, becoming something. None of that is wrong, but you have to ask yourself, where is it coming from? Is it coming from your heart, from a real desire to experience life on your own terms? Or is it coming from a sense of lack, from comparison, from social media, from the feeling that you are not enough yet? This question matters, and especially in your 20s, because whether you define success consciously or not, it is still defining you. And no, you don't need to have it all figured out. If you don't have all the answers right now, that's not failure, that's just being human. But at the very least, check the direction you are heading. Ask yourself why you are chasing what you're chasing. Because at the end of the day, if you don't define what success means to you, someone else will. And you might end up building a life you were never meant to live. Lesson number 2, find your unique balance. In my early 20s, I was all in the external world. Fresh actor, new model in Paris, hungry to succeed. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to become someone. And for a while, it worked. But the more I succeeded, the more disconnected I felt from myself. At first, I didn't know why. I was doing something I was passionate about, working with creative people, traveling, building something that felt meaningful. It looked right, but it felt wrong. And no amount of new contract or success could fix that. Eventually, I realized that if I wanted peace, real peace, I had to look somewhere I haven't looked before. So I went to the opposite extreme. I left Paris and I moved to a monastery in India. And there, through hours of practice, simple living, study, I learned to meditate, to sit still. I found a kind of peace I didn't know was possible. But peace doesn't end the story, because eventually I had to come back to the city, back to the world I had once walked away from. And to be honest with you, I was completely lost. I came back to the same world, but I wasn't the same person anymore. I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't know how to show up every day. I didn't even know how to be myself. I thought I had found peace, but I haven't yet learned how to live with it. Over the past 2 years, I've been trying to rebuild my life, to carry what I have learned into a world that doesn't slow down. And honestly, it hasn't been easy, but it taught me something crucial. If you want a life that's truly fulfilling, you need both. You need to build your place in the world. Career, money, stability, whatever that means for you. But you also need something deeper, something internal. And when I say spiritual, I don't mean religion. I mean a connection to something within you that does not depend on outcomes. Because if you only build outward, you will lose yourself. And if you only go inward, you'll be wise, yes, but completely out of touch. True power is in balance. Now, does that mean you will master it in your 20s? No, most of us won't, and I definitely didn't. And that's okay. You are going to fall out of balance. You are going to get lost in the world and in yourself. That's part of it. But what really matters is that you notice it and you keep coming back and back. So whenever you feel disconnected, just pause and ask yourself, where am I out of balance right now? Am I caught in the noise? Or am I using growth as a way to avoid life? If you have the courage to ask those questions honestly and course correct when needed, you will build a life that's not just successful, but one that feels like it's truly yours. Lesson number 3. You are what you consume. We don't talk about this enough, but one of the most important choices you will make in your 20s is where you place your attention. In the monastery, the most powerful practice we were given was silence. Days, sometimes weeks, without speaking. No phone, no music, no eye contact, just remaining with yourself. And at first, it was unbearable, but slowly, days after days, something shifted. A distance started to happen between me and my thoughts. I started to notice all my conditioning and impulses instead of reacting to them. And for the first time, I felt free. Being capable of seeing my inner turmoil from a distance felt like a kind of superpower to me. But the real lesson didn't hit me until I came back into the world. That's when I realized we are not just surrounded by noise. We are conditioned by it. A constant flood of reels, tweets, opinions, headlines, ads. Everything is designed to pull out your nervous system, to distract, to hijack your focus. And most of it is not there to nourish you, it is there to hook you, to keep you scrolling, clicking, comparing. Because the more distracted you are, the more influence someone else has over your life. But hear me out. I have fallen into that loop too. Even after 2 years of silence, I still get caught scrolling, comparing, numbing. It's embarrassing sometimes, knowing better and still falling in. But it's not about being perfect. It's about showing up again and again. That's what makes it real. It's not just distraction. It's an identity hack. Because your attention becomes your habits. Your habits becomes your mind. And your mind, it becomes your life. So, what can you do? Start by creating space. Turn everything off. And just sit with yourself. No distraction. Just sit. Breathe and observe. At first, your mind will scream. It will beg for stimulation. That's when you'll start to see how deep the conditioning really runs. But keep sitting, because in that stillness, you begin to remember who you truly are, beyond the noise. And that awareness, that's power. If you can learn to sit with yourself now, to be still without needing anything from the outside, you will tap into a kind of strength most people never find. And that gives you the inner strength to move through this world without losing yourself. But awareness alone isn't enough. Because once you unplug, you still need somewhere to place your attention. If you don't give your mind a direction, the world will give it one for you. That's why the most powerful thing you can do is build something. A long-term project, a creative path, a mission you care about, even if no one's watching. For me, it is this YouTube journey, this practice of creating, reflecting, and sharing. It gives my energy a direction. But all that does not mean I don't get distracted. I do. That's why I use things like Opal to block apps, or I even hide YouTube recommendation with Unhook. So, if you are in your 20s, start noticing where your attention goes. Not to judge yourself, but to reclaim yourself. Because your attention is your life, and where you place it is who you ultimately become. Lesson number 4, don't take life for granted. The thing that scared me the most in my 20s wasn't failure, it wasn't being judged, it wasn't even being lost. It was regret. The thought of waking up one day too late and realizing I had missed something important. So I did everything I could to avoid that feeling. I took risks, made difficult choices, chased growth like my life depended on it. And in many ways, it worked. I was growing spiritually. I was becoming more disciplined, building a life aligned with my values. But life always finds ways to humble you. Because sometimes the lesson isn't about what you chase. It's about what you don't notice while you're chasing it. There was someone in my life during that time. Someone who gave me love, patience. She gave me more than I knew how to receive. She stood by me while I was becoming my higher self. And I didn't realize what I had until she was gone. It took me a while to understand. I was so focused on growth, on purpose, on becoming, that I stopped being with her. And that's the things no one tells you about growth. You can't live with good intention and still cause pain, simply by not being there. And that's why I'm telling you this. Not to guilt you, not to lecture you about gratitude, but to remind you of something simple. Don't miss what you already have. Because one day, the moments you are rushing through now, the people you assume will always be there, may be the very things you wish you held a little tighter. And the worst part, you won't even know what you missed until it's too late to go back. So yes, chase your goals, build your life, but remember to slow down, to notice, to love fully while you can. Because growth means nothing if it costs you what matters most. Lesson number 5. Don't be so hard on yourself. One of the things that quietly followed me throughout my 20s, even during the moment I was doing the right thing, was this feeling that I still wasn't enough. Not externally, internally. Even when I made the brave decision, took the hard road or follow my intuition, there was always a voice in the background whispering. What? I just think you should have done more. Let's put it this way. You could have done it better. You could have done it better. Just saying, you're still behind. And the truth is, I was doing what I wanted to do. I wasn't following the crowd. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was building a life I believed in. And yet, I still carried this pressure. Like I had to constantly prove to myself that I wasn't wasting time, that I was evolving fast enough, that I was becoming enough. And that's the trap. You can live an aligned life and still hate yourself while doing it. You can chase growth while never letting yourself feel good about how far you have come. And you won't notice it at first, because it hides behind ambition, behind discipline, behind the idea that you are being honest with yourself. But underneath it is a constant sense of not there yet. And the thing is, that doesn't make you better. It just makes you bitter in the long run. I used to think you couldn't be content while still striving, that the only fuel came from being unsatisfied. But that's not true. I have learned that you can have compassion for yourself and still want to grow. And in fact, I noticed I was much better at my craft when I was creating from a sense of wholeness, not lack. But even when you know better, even when you are conscious, that pressure still finds a way to affect you. Movies tell you you are behind. Social media show you people are already there. Advertising, lifestyle content, personal branding, productivity culture makes you feel late at your own life. It all points out to what you don't have yet. And it gets in. Quietly, subtly, but it eventually shapes how you see yourself. So, if you are in your 20s, pushing, striving, trying to become something meaningful, just remember, you don't have to beat yourself up to become your best self. And no, it won't be easy, because most of the world profits from you feeling inadequate. It sells you the idea that you are always one step behind, one habit away, one course, one lifestyle, one version of yourself you haven't become yet. And that's why this matters. Because real growth doesn't come from growing against yourself, but from with yourself. When you decide to stay committed, but still choose compassion when you fall short. That's when growth becomes sustainable. So yeah, push yourself, dream big, do hard things, but don't forget, you're still human. and you are allowed to be on your way without punishing yourself for not being there yet. The truth is, no one really knows where there is anyway. We are all just walking, trying and learning as we go. And that's the point. It's not about getting there. It's about how you walk the road with yourself, not against yourself. So here we are, the 5 lessons that shaped my 20s. And for those of you who are still watching, let me leave you with this. The point of this video was to help you understand how important it is to truly know yourself. But why knowing yourself is so important? I recently heard something from a monk and YouTuber I follow. His name is Nick Kiomahavong. And Nick said that throughout your life, you're going to have to make decisions. If you don't know your values, if you don't know yourself, if you don't have an anchor, you're going to rely on the world around you to decide for you. And that hit me deeply, because when life presents you with a decision and you have no inner compass, you will look outside to trends, to other opinions, to people. But if you take the time in your 20s to build that anchor, then when the choices come, you'll be able to fully take responsibility and make decisions that align with who you truly are. And that can change the entire course of your life. So, thank you. Thank you for taking this time to pause, to reflect, and to explore what it means to live a more conscious life. If this video brought you something, please consider liking and subscribing. Your support in this journey means a lot. Oh, and before you go, let me know in the comment section, what is the most important lessons you have learned in your 20s? And I see you soon.